Yeah, I have started now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Our team includes Eric, Orlen, Prince, Jessica, Athena, Rahul, and Sarvesh. We will present our project 2, which we will talk about rising inflation in Canada. I'm going to start talking about the introduction. Our main objective is to provide a deeper understanding of the complexities of macroeconomics. We are applying the knowledge, concepts, and theories we have seen in class. We'll talk about a real life situation to analyze and see what implication it has. In our research for information, we will draw on a variety of information sources, including publications from good institutions such as the Bank of Canada, as well as relevant research and studies that we research in the database provided to the school. Likewise, we want to give a deep understanding of the impact inflation on Canada's economic outlook. Therefore, we will focus on the importance of economic stability and purchasing power. Likewise, we will focus on the monitoring inflation trends in Canada. We will achieve by investigating the causes of inflation protection and examining the influence of the Canadian economy. In addition, in order to provide a visual, accessible, and understandable presentation of the data we obtained, we will resort to the use of figures, graphs, and tables. In this way, they will allow a clear and concise representation of the key aspects like inflation trends and consumer price index. Therefore, this presentation represents the synthetics of class-based theory, the real-world insights from research, and the quantitative data of a disposal. We want to offer a holistic analysis and profound understanding of the complex subject of inflation and its ramification for the nation of the Canada.
Good evening, Professor and my fellow classmates. I will be speaking on the background of the project. So, for the slide one, the project is based on an article reported by Shakil and Scherer and published by Reuters on 15th August 2023 on Canadian inflation rates. The objective is to introspect on inflation rise and outline the factors responsible for the crisis. So we speak of history of Canadian inflation rates to understand the issue. The inflation rate for consumer prices moved over the past years, past 62 years between 0.2% and 12.5%. The average 10-year inflation rate was 2.65% percentage. For year 2022, an inflation rate was 6.8%. The Federal Reserve sets target inflation at 2% for medium term economic stability. Inflation in June 2.8 percentage and inflation forecast was 3% in July, but surged to 3.3% in July. Mm, Increasing the concern for interest rate hike. However, the Bank of Canada had projected in July as 3% and 2% in 2025. Next slide, please. There are multiple factors that have pushed the inflation rate. Gas prices, price of electricity up by 11.7%, grocery up by 8.5%. As we can see, food prices showed a decline, but it increased at a slower rate due to lack of competition. Just five big players dominating the market in Canada in the grocery business. Economics feel drastic measures as price caps on staple grocery items be done. Mortgages have been another major pressure point in the increasing consumer price index of late in July. It increased by 30.6% in the past year. The Bank of Canada, after its last hike in July, it said it would study data closely before moving again, since they will have the second quarter data to work out with. Thank you. This was all for the background part. Now, my friend Gulin will speak on the factors affecting inflation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarvesh. Hello, everyone. This is Kurleen. Today, I will discuss the most pressing economic issue that affects us all inflation in Canada. As of July 2023, Canada's consumer price index rose by 3.3% compared to the previous year, surpassing market expectations and contributing to a surge in inflation. One of the major factors behind this surge in inflation is the rise in mortgage interest cost and higher interest rates, which have led to the increased borrowing cost for consumers, ultimately fueling inflation. Energy and food prices also contribute to inflation. While energy prices have shown some fluctuations, electricity prices in Alberta have increased due to summer demand. Food prices have remained elevated, although there are signs of cooling in fresh fruit and bakery products. As you can see in the graph, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed fluctuations in the inflation rate, largely due to decreased interest rate, which were aimed at stabilizing the economy. However, post-pandemic, increasing mortgage interest cost has significantly contributed to inflation volatility, with the CPI reaching 8.1% in June 2022, the highest in history, while the annual inflation rate has slightly eased to 2.8% in June compared to the previous year. It has now not yet reached the target rate of 2%. Next slide, please. Next factor is the relationship between interest rates and the CPI is evident. The Bank of Canada reduced the prime rate of 2.45% during the pandemic to stimulate economic activity and make borrowing more affordable. However, they have raised the prime rate multiple times post-pandemic to control inflation within the 2% target range. The recent decision to increase the prime rate to 7.20 reflects the central bank's commitment to combat rising inflation and protect the purchasing power of consumers. This move is expected to discourage borrowing and spending while encouraging should investment decisions, which could help ease upward pressure on prices. Next slide, please. As you can see in this graph, residential housing has played a significant role in this scenario. Residential sales surged after the pandemic as lower interest costs reduced financial expenses for mortgages. However, the recent increase in interest rate is impacting housing sales, creating a widening gap between residential sales and listings. This shift in the housing market is significant. Next slide, please. Furthermore, residential average prices have seen substantial increases, particularly in provinces like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Calgary in Alberta. Lowering house prices in these regions compared to major provinces have attracted buyers looking for more affordable home ownership. This increased demand is driving up residential average prices in these areas, while other provinces are experiencing declines. Thank you for your attention, and my partner Rahul will take over.
Hi everyone, I'm here to talk about the monetary policy and inflation. Considering the monetary policy, the Bank of Canada utilizes monetary policy to combat inflation and stabilize the economy. The inflation control target rate is set at 2% with a target rate of 1 to 3%. Inflation in Canada is projected to stay around 3% for the next year before returning to 2% by the mid 2025. Okay, next slide. Okay, the aggregate demand and inflation. In aggregate demand represents the overall demand for goods and services in an economy. Inflation simply means the increase in general prices of these goods and services. And the formula for calculating aggregate demand is AD equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M, where C stands for the consumer expenditure, I is the investment, G is the government expenditure, and X minus IM stands for the difference between export and import. Okay, next slide. Impact of next slide is about the impact of determinants of aggregate demand on economy. Okay, shift in aggregate demand components can significantly impact output, employment, and price levels. Increased consumer expenditure or government spending stimulates the production of economic growth, and decrease in these factors lead to the decreased aggregate demand and economic slowdown. Okay, next slide. This graph shows about the aggregate demand curve and the shift in aggregate demand from curve from A to B. And the reason for the shift is, okay, next slide. The reason for the shift is consumer confidence, business confidence, monetary policy, fiscal policies, and exchange rate. And that's all from my side. Over to the next spokesperson.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, here we have aggregate supply as the total quantity of goods and services that an economy can produce at different levels. The relationship between aggregate supply and inflation is complex, and the interaction between them helps us to understand how changes in production capacity can influence price level. The figure shows the curve is upward, sloping, which suggests goods and services produce increases with increase in price level, and the level of aggregate supply increases, where you have Y1 and Y2 represent the economy in microeconomies, corresponding to P2 and P3, which is the price level given that all determinants are constant except price level. That's the curve now is the aggregate supply. Next slide, please. Aggregate demand and supply. Sorry, next slide, please. Aggregate demand and supply model. Applying the AD, aggregate demand and aggregate supply model at this expression, in case of inflation, we also have this expression at P greater than PO, where the aggregate demand lesser than AS. This expression shows AD, that's aggregate demand, surpasses AS, aggregate supply, when there is a rise in inflation. Inflation causes aggregate demand to increase and shift the aggregate demand curve to right and aggregate supply curve to left. Next slide, please. Here we have the expression and the graphical representation of aggregate expenditure and the equilibrium. Due to the rise in inflation and the aggregate expenditure curve shifts left because of the rising inflation, which reduces real value of people income and discourages investment and consumer spending. Next slide, please. If interest rate goes up from IO, from IO to high one, aggregate expenditure will fall from AE1 to AO. Therefore, an increase in interest rate will lead to a decrease in AE, while a decrease in interest rate will lead to an increase in AE. Next slide, please. High inflation can occur when demand outpaces or exceeds production capacity. A shift in aggregate demand is increased by consumer spending. Cost push inflation occurs due to supply shock, like rising wage costs. Impact on the aggregate expenditure, this tends to increase aggregate expenditure. And also it manages inflation. Thank you. Next person.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening, everyone. So this is Prince John. So in the conclusion, we have embarked on an extensive explanation of the complex dynamics surrounding inflation in Canada. Our endeavor has been to illuminate not only the surface level impacts but also the underlying causes and historical trends that have shaped this economic phenomenon. By doing so, we aim to provide a understanding of how inflation resonates through and crucially how it affects the day-to-day lives of Canadians. Through rigorous analysis, a prominent trend has come to the light: a significant surge in inflation rate. This surge is fueled by a combination of factors, most notably the sharp rise in prices of essential commodities like gas and electricity. Additionally, the challenges faced by the grocery market has added to the inflationary pressure. These factors collectively underscore the urgency and importance of addressing this. Remaining vigilant and adaptable in financial strategies is paramount. Seeking professional advice when needed adds an additional layer of prudence in managing one's economic stability. It is a collaborative effort between individual and institutions to ensure the collective economic well-being of the nation. In essence, this report acts as more than just an informational document. It is valuable resource that empowers readers with a holistic comprehension of inflation nature in the Canadian constant. By arming individual with knowledge and actionable recommendation, we seek to confidence and resilience in the face of economic challenges. In a continuous evolving economic landscape, the significance of making proactive, informed financial decisions cannot be overstated. Thanks. This is all from conclusion. Over to you, Atinder now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Prince. My name is good evening, everyone. My name is Atinder Kaur. And last but not the least, here are some recommendations to stop accelerating inflation. When inflation accelerates in Canada, it is essential to consider strategies to mitigate its impact on the financial well-being. So here are some recommendations that can be useful to control inflation. First one is diversify investments. The government should consider diversifying its investment portfolio. Like they should invest in the stocks, real estate, and commodities, which will be helpful to protect their wealth against the inflation. Next one is the review budget. Government should re-evaluate the budget to identify areas where they can cut unnecessary expenses, or they can focus on the essential spendings and save. They can save more money, or they can invest in the common people. Next one, invest in inflation protected securities. The government should investigate government bonds or other investments designed to protect against inflation. In Canada, these might include real return bonds. Next one, consider precious metals. The government can invest in the assets like gold and silver, diamond, or this will be helpful against the inflation, because when there is inflation, they can use it as a uh, like a fixed asset. Next one is explore high yield saving accounts. They can seek out saving accounts or investment with high interest rates to help money grow faster than inflation, or this will be very beneficial not only for the authorities as well as for the individual and common people, for the common people. Next slide, please. Okay, then next one is adjust fixed income investment. If the government has fixed income investment like bonds, then they can be aware that inflation erodes their real value. They can consider shorter term bonds or those with adjustable interest rates. Next one is increase earnings. The government should develop more opportunities to boost income, such as they can provide us side jobs or a career advancements to the people. So it will helpful to decrease the inflation. Next one is the pay down debt. If the government have the high interest debts, they should pay on the time, because this will also affect the inflation. Try to pay off credit card balances and loan as quickly as possible. Next is the monitor inflation reports. The authorities should stay informed about the inflation rates and economic indicators to make informed financial decisions, and it will helpful uh, to control the inflation. Next one is a hire a best financial advisors. The administration should hire the best financial advisors who can tailor a strategy to specific final situations and goals. I think all these points are very necessary to control the inflation. But remember that strategies always align with the circumstances and risk tolerance. So be cautious and approach the best financial professionals if the government is unsure about the best approach for the particular situation. So that's all about my part. And I think we cover all the aspects which we required in our project. So thank you, everyone.
This is all from our team. Thank you, everyone.
Finally.
So I can stop recording now.
Yeah.
Okay, just a moment.